class. We're talking about the book of Revelation, and we just finished talking about the song of the 144,000 and the 100. And I've come across something interesting. In the last verse we were talking about, it says, I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. That's actually, I found out that's a little bit of a mistranslation. The correct translation is having not only the Father's name, but the name of Christ and the Father in the forehead. So there's two names in the forehead. And I think one name signifies the heart and the other the mind, so to speak. And you have a reflection of the heart in the forehead itself. The 12-petal heart logos is reflected in the crown center. So in the head, you have both the heart and the head. So both the Christ consciousness and the first great consciousness of the Father in the head. So 144,000 that have within the consciousness of the head the higher feelings of the heart, and then the consciousness about following the will of God. So instead of having the mark of the beast, where you have you are governed by your lower feelings, and your lower feelings want an outer God that they can worship. And this is actually the worship of the beast that it talks about. And instead of that, those who escape the mark bypass those lower feelings and are governed by the higher feelings of love, which is service to humanity, and then the higher will, representing that you are willing to follow the voice within above the outer voices that are without. So I found that to be kind of an interesting addition. All the new translations talk about the two names rather than the one that's mentioned in the King James Version. But I've never noticed that before, so I thought I'd point that out. Any more comments on the name before we move on here? And remember, the name, anything we say about the name is just a kind of a symbol of it, from Jehovah, Yahweh, I am becoming there. These are all symbols. The true name is beyond words. It's a consciousness of your identity, your oneness with God. When you have that identity, because what is a name? A name tells you supposedly who you are. So when you have the name of Christ and God in your forehead, it means you recognize you're one with Christ and one with God, or one with Christ who is also one with God. You could say either way.
Well, it's interesting that everyone here has two names. Joseph Dewey, two names. One could be representing first ray, which would be Dewey, and Joseph would be second ray of your heart energy, which would be Joseph.
Yeah. Yeah, we have two or three names, and the three names could be symbolic of the Trinity. Curtis Clarence Harwell.
Yeah, Joseph
Aren't you
J.
glad aren't you glad your first name wasn't Clarence?
My dad's first name was Clarence Stanley, and he went by Stanley.
Yeah, Clarence isn't really a name that most people would want to go by.
Yeah, cross-eyed lion. Remember him? That's my grandfather was Clarence.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So everybody really has three names if you think about it.
Yeah.
Edward something Jeanette. I'm sure he's got a middle name.
What's your middle name, Edward?
Lewis.
Lewis. Well, that's not too bad a name. kind
Yeah,
of cool
Lewis.
name. Edward Lewis. Annie, do you have a middle name?
Yeah, but I chose it myself. Ida,
How do you spell that?
Ida,
Oh, we pronounce that
Ida.
Ida
Ida.
over here. I had a neighbor named Ida when I was young.
Yeah, Ida Jensen.
Yeah, remember her?
Yeah, I
A
know.
lot of people in Denmark don't have middle names.
Oh,
Annie
really?
Ida West.
Really?
That's
Oh,
kind of
that's
cool.
I
interesting.
wasn't given one by birth.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting how different cultures have different ideas on that. What's your middle name, Adam?
Bingham.
Bingham. Is that are you named
Bingham.
after some Mormon authority or something?
My That's my pioneer ancestors. It's my mom's maiden name.
Oh,
But yeah, they were pioneers. They discovered the copper mine,
oh, really?
the
Oh,
Bingham copper mine here in Utah.
Oh yeah.
too bad you don't.
Brigham told them we're not here to mine, so move on. And so the Clayton family, the Bingham clan never prospered from the mine.
Too bad you don't have some inheritance involved in that, huh?
No, nothing. It's
Yeah.
Brigham Young's fault.
Funny how everybody has a middle name, but it's remains silent. What's your son's name? Joseph? Is he a Joseph J. Dewey too, or just
Yeah,
a?
he's same as me now. His mom didn't want him to be called Junior, which I didn't like the name Junior either. So we named him Joseph John Dewey the second rather than Junior.
Oh, he's another JJD.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
Aren't you glad we didn't name you Junior, Joseph?
call him Junior.
Yeah, this the second's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I can't imagine calling you Junior. That sounds like you're a lower level if you call the kid Junior. Second doesn't sound like a lower level. It sounds like equal. Okay, my friends, we're moving on to the next verses, talking about the virgins of God.
Finally.
These are they who are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and unto the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. So the 144,000, remember the 144,000 are people that have escaped the mark of the beast. They go by the God within. They recognize the name within, that they are one with God. So they have escaped, but it says here they are virgins. Does that mean that all these 144,000 are not married, that they've never had sex with any woman, or if they're women, they've never had sex either? So what does this mean? Why would it? Do we have to be a virgin to be escape the mark of the beast?
Maybe spiritually virgin.
You're pure. A virgin is pure and innocent, untainted. Is
Yeah.
a virgin.
Well, for one thing, the scriptures don't say that marriage is something to be avoided. It's the scriptures all encourage marriage. So, because the scriptures encourage marriage, it would be obvious that you could be married and be one of the 144,000. Here's what Jesus said about marriage. And he answered and said unto them, have you not read that he which made them in the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and the twain shall be one flesh. So here marriage is encouraged. So obviously you can be married and be one of the 144,000. So why would it call these virgins? Now, it calls them virgins because, not because they've never had sex, but the scriptures actually define marriage a little bit differently. It talks about being married to God, like Israel is married to God, and in this marriage, if you lose your virginity, if you leave the true God, and where do we find the true God?
Within.
Within the name of God, within that identity. When we leave that identity and accept authorities outside that do not harmonize with the voice within, then you've lost your virginity. Matter of fact, Paul talks about this. He says, "For I am jealous over you with a godly jealousy." These are the people that he was teaching. "For I have espoused you to one husband, that I may present you a chaste virgin to Christ." Now, these people he was talking to, many of them were married. Yet he says he has espoused them, and he's going to present them as a chaste virgin to Christ. And these people could have been part of the 144,000 consciousness of their day. So we have Israel presented as the bride of Christ. We even have the story of the 10 virgins, and the 10 virgins are waiting for their bridegroom, who is supposedly Christ, and they're to be married to Christ. And 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. The wise ones had oil in their lamps, which signifies the Spirit of God that is within themselves. That gives them the oil so that they can maintain their virginity and be one with the Christ, or one with the 144,000. So that's kind of interesting.
Well, it's interesting that the 5 unwise went out. They went out into the night to find more oil, when the 5 wise virgins wouldn't share theirs with them. But they still didn't go within. It says they went out into the night to
They went
find.
out to the authorities. It says, go to the authorities that sell.
Right.
So they went to the beast.
Right. They went straight to the beast.
Right. And they missed the union with God, so to speak.
Yeah.
The scripture continues.
JJ, can I just ask a question there?
Sure.
Because, the story says the foolish.
Are you there? Sound like you got cut off.
You there, Moshe?
Yeah, maybe ask it again a little later. Okay, the scripture continues. These, the 144,000, are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Now, it's one thing to get communication from within. Many people take this step of, okay, everything, all that which I need to follow is within. So they go within, they start checking the voice, but then the voice guides them in a certain way, but then they don't follow that guidance. And this is the important step of being in that consciousness of the 144,000, is they actually follow the Lamb, or the Christ consciousness within. Follow it wherever it leads you. And this is where many people fail. When people first make that contact to the still small voice, that's so still and so small that they don't believe it's real. So the first few contacts most disciples make, they don't really follow, because it's hard for them to believe that it's real because it's so still and so small. But then they eventually, through hard knocks, they learn that it's accurate and they learn to follow it. And eventually the dedicated disciple follows wherever it leads. And of course, Christ set the great example. He followed the inner voice wherever it led, and eventually he reached crisis point in the Garden of Gethsemane, where following the voice was so difficult that he says, Father, if it be possible, could you remove this cup? Because I don't really want to follow where I'm headed here. Okay, and no, he couldn't remove it. So he followed, and he made the right decision to follow wherever it led. And all of us in our lives will have that same thing happen sooner or later, numerous times on different levels, where you get a communication from the inner voice, and you are hesitant to follow for a number of reasons. Number one, first of all, you'll ask, is this real? Maybe it's my imagination and I don't really need to follow it. And then the disciple learns that it is real, but then he gets communications that he thinks, this is something I would never do on my own. Okay. Do I really want to do that? Am I really willing to do this? Am I willing to say, not my will, but yours be done? And the disciple that does this becomes part of the 144,000. He follows the Lamb whithersoever he goeth.
What's interesting with Jesus is he spoke a lot of words he says, these words are not mine, they are given to me. So, it's like in broadcast news where the words were fed to the broadcaster from behind the scenes, and Jesus had to say them. They were given to him. That would have taken a lot of courage to say to the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees, the words that he spoke, because a lot of them didn't come from Jesus; they came through the Christ.
And could you imagine how much courage it took him to cleanse the temple?
Oh man.
Have you ever thought of going in the Mormon temple and cleansing that?
Yeah.
How much courage that would take?
better bring a whip. Well, we could all go.
Yeah.
That'd be
okay.
fun.
These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. So when the disciple follows the Lamb whithersoever he goeth, and follows that inner voice, he becomes the first fruits. In other words, he will set an example that will register with other people, and he will bring other people into this consciousness. So this is perhaps you could consider it our job of disciples like are here right now. You are the first fruits. Go out and bring others into the consciousness that you have. And that's basically the mission of the Christ consciousness, is to, once you take a step up, help others to also take the step. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Now, no guile, that comes from a Greek word that basically means deceit. In other words, there's no deceit in the words of people that reaches this level of the 144,000 consciousness. They do not deceive. Now look at all of our politicians if you want to know what deceit is about. The politician, many of them tell us what we want to hear, not what they actually plan on doing. The politicians tell us what we want them to be thinking, not what they are really thinking. There's so much deceit we are witnessing in the political world. I love the person that presents himself as he is, warts and all, that so we know who we're electing. But I'd say about 9 times out of 10, they're trying to present an image of themselves that is distorted, that is different than what we are actually going to elect. That's why so many people are disappointed with our political system. We think we're electing somebody that's going to do X, Y, Z, and they wind up doing A, B, C, or whatever instead, and or they're pulled away from maybe that by the powers that be, and they go with the powers that be rather than the people that he elected them. And so, same thing in the spiritual world, and the business world, all the places where there's power, you have a lot of deceit going on, where people are presenting themselves different than they really are. Many spiritual leaders present themselves as the epitome of virtue, yet they wind up with sexual problems, molesting young children, different things like this, and having affairs on the side and secret. So in all areas where there's power, there's also, in many cases, there's tremendous corruption. And there's a lot of truth in that statement that absolute power corrupts. And you find people, almost everybody that is given substantial power over others, starts to abuse it. And this is what the disciple must resist. And this is the ultimate test. And the funny thing about power is that almost everybody thinks that if they had power, they would use it righteously and well and good. But then almost everybody, when they get power, they abuse it. And because once a person gets a substantial amount of power, they want to do things their way, and their way conflicts with people that are under them. And so you have this conflict. And when there's a conflict, then the person thinks, well, rather than kind of listen to these people and work things out, I'm just going to tell people this is the way it is because I have power and I speak, you obey. And that makes the solution just really simple. Okay. And that's one of the reasons that power corrupts is that you eventually have this conflict and the person is faced with the choice, do I do this the easy way or hard way? And the easy way is just say, I speak, you obey. The hard way is say, well, I'll listen to you and let's work things out and get agreements going and harmony restored. And that's the hard way, but that's the way the disciple needs to work it out. And
one thing to remember is that when you seek to grow spiritually, all the hidden faults from the past all come to the surface. Like Madame Blavatsky once said, the hidden dogs come to the surface and bite you.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, Ed. That we have a long history of many lifetimes behind us, and we think, yeah, if I had this power, I would be Mr. Nice Guy. But then when they get it, instincts from the past start to surface that they didn't even know they had. And we see this happen, well, in dictators of the past, like, let's take somebody like Stalin. He thought he had good intentions when he came to power, and then he found little resistance. So the instinct to remain in control and overcame him to the point that he became a real tyrant, had many people put to death just to preserve his power.
Well, it's important. I think delegation is a key principle. The person has a lot of power. For it not to be corrupted, it could be delegated into smaller groups that could help solve problems, help be co-creative in a higher state of reference being.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from Reagan is he said, "It's amazing what you can accomplish if you're not concerned about who gets the credit."
Right.
So
JJ.
the one in power wants to get all the credit to himself, whether he deserves it or not. But if he doesn't mind people under him coming up with ideas and then giving them credit instead of taking it from stealing it for himself, then he can actually accomplish a lot more, because then everybody feels empowered. But if all the credit, deserved or not, goes to the one in power, then the people under him do not feel empowered. Yeah, Soph, did you have something?
Yeah, there can be exceptions, I think, because if the group is entering let's talk about the molecule. If the molecule enters a state of emergency, then not necessarily the molecule, any group. The group is entering a state of emergency, and the decision must be done, must be made quickly. So there need to be a trust, trusting the leader to make the necessary decision quickly, because it's emergency. And after the deed is done, we can see if there was a mistake, or discuss the future.
Well, yeah, like this happened during World War II in Britain. Winston Churchill assumed command, and they had to give him, as well as FDR in the United States, pretty much the powers of a dictator to a large degree to win the war. But even though Churchill had tremendous power given to him, where his word was pretty much it, he didn't try to steal glory away from others. If somebody come up with some innovative code-breaking mechanism, well, he was happy to give credit to the guy. You know, he didn't say this happened. This has all happened because of what I'm doing, which is typical of politicians. If the economy improves, the president of the United States will always claim it's because of him. If it goes downhill, he'll claim it's because of somebody else. But it's typical of those in power to not see clearly where the blame or the credit rests. And this is what the disciple will do. He doesn't deceive. He doesn't see deceptively. He sees clearly. He sees beyond the illusion. So he will give credit where credit is due, and not try to take credit for what he doesn't deserve. You notice, and the epitome of this is North Korea. Kim Jong-un, if he doesn't get credit for everything that's supposed to be good, well, then you wind up in prison or dead. So everything that's beneficial or supposed to be beneficial, the credit has to go to him, and he's not doing anything except barking out some orders. And so in reality, he really isn't accomplishing very much, which just a good photo from space will tell you that. Have you guys seen photos of North and South Korea from space at night? I think most of you have seen that picture. South Korea, where they have freedom, it's all lit up at night. In North Korea, there are just a couple little tiny lights throughout the whole country at night. It's amazing the difference. Yet the people in North Korea are hypnotized to think they have it better. And of course they don't. I think a lot of them realize the true situation, but they would never speak it. Okay.
That's what real acknowledgement does. A genuine compliment, it lights up the person that you give it to if it's genuine. I think that's part of the principle of glory that you taught me about, where you know acknowledge whoever is doing whatever they're doing, giving free compliments, which the dark side is very reluctant to do, but the light side does quite often, I think. I notice you're good at giving compliments.
Oh, thank you. Well, you're giving me quite a few lately, so probably more than I deserve.
Marginally.
So in their mouth was found no deceit. And this, how many people do you know that there's no deceit in their mouth at all? Those type of people, you should befriend them and make friends of such people, because they're very valuable people that do not seek to deceive in any way. And you really find out who these people are when the chips are down, when there's some problem where if you tell the truth, you will appear to lose. That's when you really find out who is without deceit. Okay. So let's suppose you're married and you make some screw up that you know would make your spouse irritated if he or she finds out and they ask you about it. Are you going to tell them the truth and watch them get agitated, or kind of smooth it over with deceitful speak? You know, just little things like that arise in life that test us about deceiving or not. So it's important to, if we want to maintain this high consciousness, to try to live our lives so that everything that we say is true, that we're not trying to deceive people for our own ends. And then the second thing is they are without fault before the throne of God. You have all the religious people quoting the scripture for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So we're all faultful before the throne of God according to regular teachings. A Course in Miracles presents a different twist on this. It says in this world that we're in, you know, we all appear to be imperfect, but it says the imperfection is actually an illusion. It says when we realize our true selves and connect with the God within, then we are one with that which is without blame. Because the Christ, the name of Christ, and the name of the Father and the Son within our forehead, once we identify with that, we leave behind all the illusion of imperfection and we become without fault before the throne of God. Forget our past. All of us have made mistakes in the past. All that is left behind when you assume your true name, which is one with the Father, the heart, or the Father, the will, and the Son, which would be the heart of God, so to speak. Okay, any more comment on that? Next, we will move on to the everlasting gospel. We'll talk about this next week. I'll just read the next verse. And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach to them that dwell upon the earth, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. So this, he sees another angel flying, having the everlasting gospel. That's a scripture quoted a lot by the Mormon church.
We use that all the time. That was part of our discussion.
Yeah. So we're going to give a little bit different twist on that next week than either the Mormons or the Orthodox Christians interpret it. So that's what we'll continue talking about next week.
Cool.
So any comments or questions before we move on to the meditation?
So you're saying that according to Course in Miracles, no matter what we've done in this holy instant where we are in the nexus of time and space, we can forget all of our past and everything and be perfect and innocent before God.
Yeah, the Course in Miracles presents it kind of like this. This whole thing we're in now is like a dream. Now, if you're in a dream and you dream you're robbing a bank, which I actually had that dream a while back, that I was robbing this bank. But then when you wake up, you know you're not guilty of robbing a bank because you realize you're not that entity that was robbing the bank. You're another entity. You're you as being the awake you. And when it tells us, so when you tap into that your real self and wake up, then everything you felt guilty about just goes away, and you're innocent before the throne of God, so to speak. It doesn't word it that way, but it basically teaches that idea. You know, interesting, interesting concept there.
I buy into that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting. The parable of the two people went to confess at the altar. One of them was a Pharisee that says, I fast twice a week and give all my money to the poor, and I do this and that. And so I am righteous before God. And another guy comes in and says, oh, and he was a person that did a lot of negative things. And he said, Lord, forgive me, a sinner. And Christ says, which one of these was really on the right path? And it was the one that had all kinds of things that he did that was wrong. And he was able to release all that in one instant because he recognized who he really was, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay. Good comments. Let's